Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into the gripping and honestly pretty tragic story of an ancient prophet who was handed the ultimate unpopular message. We're looking at the biblical figure of Jeremiah. He lived during one of the most terrifying, turbulent times in ancient history, right at the tail end of the southern kingdom of Judah, just before the catastrophic fall of Jerusalem. But listen, this isn't just some dusty history lesson. It's a profound look at human endurance, what it means to tell the truth in an age of lies, and what happens when a whole society just absolutely refuses to face reality. To really get what Jeremiah went through, I want you to imagine something for a second. Think about working tirelessly at a vital, high-stakes job. You're pouring your heart out day in and day out for 23 years, trying to save people from absolute disaster. And for those 23 entire years, absolutely zero people listen to you? Nobody cares? That is exactly the reality Jeremiah faced. He preached for over 2 decades and saw literally zero positive effect. The people just tuned him out completely. Section 1. A Kingdom on the Brink. To understand this crushing reality, we really need to look at the terrifying geopolitical landscape of the ancient Near East during this time. I mean, look at how fast everything collapses. Over the course of just a single generation, we see this terrifying closing pincer movement. It starts around 620 BC with a really hopeful period. King Josiah kicks off a massive religious reform after finding the Torah. So you're thinking, great, there's hope, but it doesn't last. The superpower of Babylon is looming large. They come in waves, taking the first group of exiles in 605 BC, a second wave in 597 BC, all the way down to the complete dissolution of the southern kingdom and the fall of Jerusalem in 587 BC. So, as this Babylonian juggernaut moved down the coastal plain, capturing fortified cities one by one until almost nothing was left, how did the politicians in Jerusalem react? Did they face the facts? Nope. Instead, they frantically and really foolishly sought an alliance with Egypt, just hoping a weaker nation could somehow save them from the Babylonian war machine. Jeremiah explicitly warned them not to do this. He told them Babylon was coming and they had to face the music. But the politicians, they just wouldn't listen. Section 2. The prophet's heavy burden. Right in the middle of all this political chaos stands Jeremiah, and he's unique. He's the son of Hilkiah the priest, the exact same priest who actually found the Torah during Josiah's reform. Because of this background, Jeremiah acutely understood the covenant between God and Israel, and he knew exactly what the consequences would be for breaking it. But those loud geopolitical threats on the outside, they were matched only by his quiet internal churning. His own words express this profound heartbreak that makes this ancient text feel incredibly intensely human. The Hebrew root words here literally describe his inner guts churning. He is physically sick over the impending doom heading for his people. Section 3. Kings and False Prophets. Now, Jeremiah wasn't just ignored. He was actively opposed by the kings, by his own hometown of Anathoth, who, by the way, actually plotted to assassinate him, and worst of all, by the religious establishment itself. The false prophets of his time acted exactly like a modern echo chamber. They gained the massive popularity simply by telling the public exactly what they wanted to hear. Peace, safety, prosperity, they said. Meanwhile, Jeremiah stood completely alone, preaching reality, judgment, doom, and exile. The tragedy here is that the people had blatantly broken the covenant, so promising peace was a heinous lie. But hey, they were the majority voice. They were popular. The denial from leadership was just staggering. Picture this. A king is sitting in his winter apartment. It's chilly. He's got a fire pot burning. Jeremiah's scribe brings in a scroll of his prophecies and reads it. And the king? He brazenly uses a scribe's knife to just cut up the columns of the scroll and throw them straight into the fire pot. No fear at all. He literally thought he could just burn the truth and make it go away. Well, spoiler alert, it doesn't work that way. God just had Jeremiah write the whole thing down again. Section 4. Ancient Performance Art. So because no one would listen to his words, or, they literally tossed them in a fire, Jeremiah had to resort to extreme visual aids, what we might call ancient performance art. He employed these eccentric, deeply symbolic methods to physically force the public to pay attention to the breaking of the covenant. He buried a linen bolt until it was ruined, showing how the people once bound to God were now ruined. He visited a potter, watching him crush a flawed pot and start over, illustrating God's prerogative to do exactly that to a flawed nation. And most famously, he literally walked around wearing a heavy wooden yoke on his shoulders to symbolize the coming oppression of Babylon. This sets up a wild moment of dramatic irony. A false prophet named Hananiah steps up publicly, takes that wooden yoke right off Jeremiah's neck, and breaks it. Hananiah declares that God will break Babylon's yoke within 2 years. It's this huge, humiliating public defeat for Jeremiah. But then, privately, God tells Jeremiah, okay, Hananiah broke a wooden yoke, but I'm replacing it with an unbreakable iron yoke for the entire nation. Those comforting lies couldn't change the harsh reality. To fully grasp one of his most intense visual aids, we actually have to trace the fascinating and pretty dark evolution of the word Gehenna. Originally, this was the Valley of Hinnom, just outside Jerusalem. It had a really dark history as an ancient site of child sacrifice. Over the centuries, it evolved into a smoldering garbage dump, a literal place of burning and refuse. So if you've ever heard Jesus use the word Gehenna as a metaphor for destruction, this literal, smoldering trash heap is exactly what he was referencing. So Jeremiah took some of the elders out to this exact, literal garbage dump in the Hinnom Valley. He brought a clay jar, which, by the way, was kind of the ancient equivalent of a plastic bag, used to hold everything. But unlike plastic, it biodegrades when you smash it. Jeremiah dramatically smashed this jar right there in the dump to powerfully illustrate that the nation would be irreparably shattered. Section 5. The Cup of Wrath. The theological weight of Jeremiah's message was incredibly heavy. He insisted that this impending disaster wasn't just bad luck, it was a measure-for-measure consequence of their actions. God's judgment was graphically compared to a cup of wine, a metaphor for the absolute devastation and havoc that sin wreaks on a society. Think about how severe alcoholism can utterly destroy an individual and tear whole families apart today. That is the exact graphic imagery meant to be conveyed by the cup of God's wrath poured out against human sin. Section 6. Exile and Future Hope. Yet, amidst all this tragedy, the public humiliation, the churning guts, Jeremiah's explainer of God's plan actually revealed a sliver of hope for the future. He provided a very specific timeline. He prophesied that, yes, the land would become a desolate wasteland, but the people would endure exactly 70 years of exile in Babylon before any restoration could occur. That's a pretty bold claim. And decades later, the prophet Daniel actually read Jeremiah's words and cited this exact 70-year timeline. But surviving those 70 years required a total paradigm shift. Using baskets of figs as a visual aid, Jeremiah taught a seemingly treasonous paradox. The good figs represented those who willingly surrendered to the enemy and went into exile in Babylon. That was actually God's path to survival. He even told them to settle down, build houses, and pray for Babylon. The bad figs, on the other hand, were the ones who stubbornly stayed behind in Jerusalem under King Zedekiah, clinging to a false sense of security. Remaining meant total ruin. The grand narrative of Jeremiah concludes not with total destruction, but with this beautiful promise of a new covenant. God says, I will be their God, and they will be my people. After all the breaking and the exile, he promises a covenant that wouldn't just be written on stone tablets that could be lost or broken, but one written directly on the people's hearts. As we reflect on this incredible historical record, it leaves us asking a really tough question. Would you have the courage to stand completely alone, mocked and ignored, and speak an unpopular truth for an entire lifetime? Jeremiah's story really forces us to think about what it truly means to carry the heavy burden of truth in an echo chamber of comforting lies. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.